One of the most common questions I get from arts administrators is where to even start with AI. So today I'm going to walk you through Claude AI from zero, how to get access to nonprofit pricing, how to set up your workspace so it actually works for your organization, and how to get to your first automated workflow. So if you appreciate this type of content, please hit the like button and let's get into it right now. Welcome to the Arts Workplace. This is a place for arts administrators to find practical knowledge and honest reflection and real experience inside the work. I'm Amy. So, why am I talking about Claude today and not one of the other tools you have heard about? It's because after testing many AI tools, and let me say they all have their strengths, they all have advantages, I believe that Claude offers the best value for nonprofits today. In addition to strong analytical capability, masterful coding skills, the ability to build custom applications, easily connecting Claude to your platforms, and some of the best agentic tools in their co-work and code tools. The reason I'm leading with it for nonprofits specifically is the pricing. Anthropic, the company that makes Claude, offers a generous discounted rate for eligible nonprofit organizations, and this rate includes all of their tools. Currently, the rate is $8 per user compared to $20 per user for Pro. Or if you need more usage, it's $40 per user compared to $100 per user for a max plan. That is a meaningful difference from the standard rate, and it's easily missed because it is not prominently advertised. So if you are a 501c3 organization, go check your availability. It's very easy to apply and set up a team account. And side note that for most of you, at least in the arts world, an enterprise level account is not necessary. A team account is really all you need. Okay, so now you have access to Claude. Let's talk about what you are actually looking at when you log in and how to set it up so that it's useful from day one. The first thing to understand is that Claude has a concept called a workspace. If you're on a team plan, your workspace is the container for everyone on your account. You can have multiple projects inside of it. You can control who has access to what, and you can set up shared resources that the whole team draws from. If you are an individual on a personal plan, your workspace is yours, but that same structure, the project structure, still applies and is still worth setting up with a lot of intentionality. So do not skip this step. I have seen people use Claude for months without ever setting up a project, and they are essentially starting from scratch every single conversation, and that's not how you get to a place of automation. Which brings me to projects. This is the feature that changed how I actually work inside Claude. A project is a persistent workspace for specific purposes. So instead of having a generic conversation with Claude every time, you open a project that already knows who you are, what you're working on, and what documents are relevant to that project. That context carries forward. You're not re-explaining yourself every session. Here's how to think about it for arts organizations. You might have a project for grant writing work, or one for patron communications, one for collecting board materials or for reporting, a project to onboard staff to Claude and other tools in the organization. Each one has its own context, its own documents, its own instructions. Claude inside that project behaves differently than Claude in a blank conversation because it knows what it is there to do. So my hope is that before you leave this video, you will set up at least one project in Claude today. It just takes a few minutes, and it is the thing that will make you actually use this. Now, inside of each project, one of the most underused features is custom instructions. This is where you tell Claude how to behave inside that project specifically. So for example, if you have a patron communications project or some sort of copywriting project, your custom instructions might say something like, always write in a warm, relationship-focused tone, never use generic phrases like, we hope this finds you well. When drafting donor acknowledgments, always reference the specific gift and the impact it funds. You write those instructions once, and every conversation inside that project follows those rules. For a grant writing project, you might say, always match the language of the funder's guidelines, flag any claims that need data citations, keep sentences under 20 words for clarity. Just whatever your real standards are, put them in your project instructions. So this is how you stop getting generic AI output and start getting something that sounds like your organization. The other piece of this is project knowledge. This is where you upload your organization's actual documents, your style guide, your mission statement, case for support, previous writing examples like letters or marketing emails. When you upload those into a project, Claude reads them and draws on them in every conversation inside that project. It is not perfect, and it is not a replacement for human review, but it means that when you ask Claude to draft a narrative, it already knows your organization's voice, your programs, your impact data, because you already gave it that information. This is the thing that closes the gap between AI generated and something that actually sounds like you and your organization. Taking a breath for just a moment, if you are finding this useful, subscribe to this channel, The Arts Workplace, so you don't miss what comes next. I publish practical content for arts administrators from someone who is doing this work inside of a real institution. The link to subscribe is right below. And now we're going to talk about connectors, which is one of my favorite features of Claude. Connectors are how Claude reaches outside of itself and into the tools you already use. Right now, Claude connects to things like Google Drive, Notion, Asana, all of your Microsoft 365 applications, and a growing list of platforms. What that means in practice is that you can ask Claude to work on your behalf in your tools. Look something up on your Drive, find and create tasks in Asana, review meeting notes from your Notion database without ever leaving the Claude interface. For a small nonprofit team, this matters because it means Claude can start acting as a coordinator across your tools rather than just a standalone assistant. You're not copying and pasting between systems. You're asking a question and you're getting an answer that draws from multiple sources. They add more every day, and connectors are developed in coordination with the vendors they are connected to, which helps ensure quality and safety. The direction is clearly toward a world where your AI assistant is actually connected to your work, not siloed from it. Getting familiar with the concept now is going to put you way ahead. Okay, now let me show you an actual analytical workflow that starts with a question about your data and ends with a task in your project management system. I'm uploading 4 years of fictionalized data from a CRM. The first thing I do is not ask a question. I ask Claude to tell me what it sees. The prompt is, I'm uploading 4 years of ticket sales history from our CRM. Each row is a transaction. Tell me what you see in this data set. I ask Claude to explain to me its understanding of what I've given it. And 99% of the time, it understands it perfectly. And then after the response, you can start asking questions if you're satisfied with what it's given you. So in this example, I'm going to say, okay, I want to look at first-time buyers across all 4 seasons. What percentage came back for a second purchase? This is something Claude is very good at. It doesn't just return a table, it returns a chart right here in the interface. No export, no pivot table, no separate tool. The visualization appears in line with the analysis. Let's ask it another question. Let's look at subscribers. How many attended fewer than 50% of their subscription concerts in any given season? That finding matters because low attendance is a leading indicator of non-renewal. And then I would ask, what's the single most important behavior that my team should be looking into? Tell me the finding, why it matters, and what else we should be asking. This is the moment it turns. Claude is no longer just running queries. It is telling me where to look next. And that finding, whatever it surfaces, can become a task. At that point, I would just tell Claude, create an Asana task based on that finding. Title it clearly, write a description, assign it to me, add it to my project list, set a due date that is 2 weeks from today. And within seconds, the task is there. The findings in the description, I did nothing. No copy paste, no context lost in translation. This is a complete analytical workflow, data question to insight to action item without leaving Claude except to confirm that the task actually landed in Asana. By the way, if you are at the stage where you are thinking about rolling this out to a team rather than just using it on your own, I've done this work inside my organization, and I can tell you that the implementation questions are different from individual setup questions. I'm going to be covering that in future videos, so subscribe so you can catch it when it drops. What does automated actually mean for most small nonprofit teams? Not fully hands off, not a robot sending letters without you. It means the repetitive cognitive work gets done faster so that the human work, the judgment, the relationship, the decisions can happen in the time you save. That reframe matters because a lot of people hear automated and either think it sounds scary or think it sounds too good to be true, but it's neither. It's a workflow shift. And keep in mind that once you have the AI workflow down, in Claude, you can turn anything into a skill that will trigger all of the steps of that workflow automatically. For example, I have a Claude skill that I created that reviews all of my meeting notes in Notion, cleans them up for me in my Notion database, making sure they have proper titles and tags. It determines from my meeting notes all of the action items that came up in those meetings, and then it creates those action items as tasks in Asana. All of that with the click of a few buttons in a chat screen. The practical starting point I want to leave you with is this. Get access, including checking your nonprofit eligibility. Set up one project. Personally, I'd start with one that has all of your basic organization assets, brand guidelines, colors, logos, writing samples, information about the mission, anything you would use to create communications and assets in your organization. This creates a foundation for Claude. But another project I'd set up is I'd pick one task that I spend the most time on. For many of you, that may be copywriting. And then just upload a few of your real documents, just a few is enough to give it a sense of your voice, into the project knowledge, write a short set of custom instructions, and then just have a real conversation inside of it. Don't optimize it, don't try to perfect it. Just use it for one real task and see what comes out. That is the only way to learn what it can actually do for your organization. And from that conversation, you can optimize and you can ask it to update itself. So as you learn new things in the conversation, ask it to go back to the project instructions and add those instructional updates. If you want to go deeper on any of the pieces I've covered today, check the description for links to Anthropic's nonprofit pricing information and a few other resources I've found useful. And if you want to see how I built an entire AI integrated workflow for my team, including what went wrong the first time I worked with it, I made a video on that too, and you can check that out right here. See you next time.